that we sponsor are limited to this. There are plenty of other things that we're doing outside of what you're seeing here. These are things that we had helped design or pilot or get pulled together, but for which there was no money to do training. So, but yeah, the reality is there's a whole lot of people wanting to work, and there's a ton of employers looking for folks.
Two final questions. One, are the people who applied aware of the fact that only a smaller amount of people will actually get opportunity?
Yes.
And then two, is that a hard number? Like, you know, if you say it's 132, is it?
Yeah, no, I think there's probably, you know, that's a probably plus or minus, you know, whatever, 5-10. I mean, I think it's, I can't see it being lower than that, but I think we were trying to be conservative in our estimates so that we were not going to overpromise and underdeliver. Obviously, that's not what we're interested in doing. So,
Councilor Carney or Hogan, any questions?
No, I'm okay. I had majority of my questions answered at the last meeting, so I'm just here to listen right now.
Appreciate it, Councilor.
thank you, Council.
I was just wondering, I mean, I noticed that the different skills you're training these folks on are somewhat different than the skills, I think, that are being trained as far as the 81 project, correct? Because that's mostly iron workers, masons, people like that, right? So that's a companion, this is sort of a companion piece.
But also keeping in mind that the training and the level of training that these folks are doing are also padding resume, that also, if they're looking to switch in careers in the field of construction, they really have a good solid base of training and information that they can move on to any other training that we have, which is what Dominic spoke.
And when you did mention switching careers, I mean, that area, it seems I'm reading a lot about folks who have had a chance to reassess their lives during the pandemic. Is there, like, in your 350 people, are those people that might be a little older that are deciding to take advantage of something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we know for a fact, right, is that there's about 30 to 35% of our city population that is employed, but still struggles to provide for their families. These are typically individuals who work multiple jobs. They're the ones that we see, you know, late at night at the grocery store or early morning school drop off, and, you know, they're people who are just struggling to get by, and yet they have the most positive work history out of anybody. They have foundational skills that can be leveraged to go into all kinds of different careers. The fact of the matter is that they have not had the opportunity to skill up because they're just too busy taking care of their families and providing for them. And so what the paid training allows for is someone to step away from a dead-end job for a while and take a chance to get up on a higher level.
So we've made efforts to communicate to those folks.
That's right. And these are folks that are largely invisible to the workforce system, right? You think about a welfare to work program like Jobs Plus, that's strictly for people receiving cash assistance. At CNY Works, you know, you have to be enrolled, you have to come to the Career Center at the current iteration of where that's at. You know, you have to hit certain check boxes. A lot of these folks might be eligible for those services, but they're not going to be compelled to go to them like those on unemployment. So, and they're not necessarily going to community centers. And so what we really had to do was rely on grassroots networks and a lot of like social media, a lot of word of mouth. We've really been pushing those things out, but those folks have come out particularly in a way that we've been really proud of, because they're really hard to find in a lot through the traditional channels.
And my last question, I know the deputy mayor is probably cognizant, everybody's probably cognizant of this. A lot of times we'll, you know, I remember during the first joint school construction board, we had the training and all that, and people were able to get skills. And I think this will happen. And this wouldn't be part of this, but this would be something that I think we all have to think about, is that, you know, you have transportation here, but I'm thinking about after they get their skills. And sometimes folks are blocked from being able to get to jobs because they don't have a car.
So we can speak to that, actually. Yeah, we've been working on this with Councilor Driscoll on a different front with the Alliance.
You're using Joe's car?
Joe gives me rides everywhere I ask.
As Councilor Bay spoke about the Uber shortage, I've stepped into the gap there. I play my tracks for them and drive them around town. And
Joe and I were born on the exact same day, just so you guys know, and
this is
have
true.
Similar taste in music, so we just carpool all the time.
Brainstorm.
So we've been working with Counselor Driscoll and a lot of other folks through an AEI grant on kind of a three-pronged strategy right now that we'll be rolling out this fall. One is we're kind of reprising a car buyer program that we helped start with Loretto and with some manufacturing firms a few years ago that was really effective, but we kind of ran out of money and learned a few lessons along the way that we're trying to kind of retool a little bit. But that's a car buyer program that'll initially be targeted at construction jobs, especially because construction jobs are all over the place. I was in the IBEW the other week, and they show up their assignment list, right, and they're putting people out to different sites, and you just see that list, and it's everything from Clay to downtown Syracuse to Cortland. So when you're in construction, you need a car. So that's where we're going to target a car buyer program starting this fall first. Amy Durfee on our team has also
hooked up with the credit union?
Yes, yeah, we're working with the Center for Financial Empowerment here and Cooperative Federal Credit Union to do that, and the Community Center Collaborative. Then we're also launching a van pool program that'll help, especially with manufacturing and a lot of those larger job sites that are kind of far away from the city and disconnected from transit lines. That's something that we'll start getting some van pools on the road by late fall, and that's a partnership with Enterprise Rental Car, and the program they've done in other cities that's really effective. And then also we're doing a vehicle maintenance fund, because there's a lot of folks actually that have cars that are just broken down and they don't have money to fix them up. So for those coming through these programs, we'll have that available. So none of that's in here, but that's all complimentary.
That's terrific. That's all I have.
If I could, thank you. If I could jump on that, long-term, how sustainable is that? And has there been any consideration, it may have been, to talk to Central about adjusting their bus lines?
So we've done a lot with Central over the years to talk about different bus line routes, something Kevin Schwab and I have worked on a ton. And then oftentimes employers will ask for that. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes the math doesn't work, the formulas. But this van pool program that I'm referring to, we're working with Centro so that actually we can, there's two things we're doing to kind of think about sustainability. One, we'll be reporting all vehicle miles traveled to Centro, and then Centro will be reporting that to the Federal Highway Administration. Once we hit a certain number of accrued miles, then we will qualify for federal subsidies for those van pool programs. So our hope is to have it sustained through Federal Highway Administration eventually. Secondly, employers are dying for people, and you can get tax write-offs for subsidizing transportation. Sure. So we're going to be asking employers to invest both in the van pool program and or in that car buyer program. So the tax break, we think will help be incentive, but with the conversations we have with employers now, we feel like this is kind of an easy sell for them to get workers. So those are at least two things we're trying to do to sustain those transportation solutions better.
Okay. Yeah, Councilor Kern.
Yeah, just to follow up with this, and I apologize if you've already answered this. I'm throwing a lot's getting thrown at us with the transportation. So I'm just the $7,400 that's allotted for in this.
Yeah.
What specifically is that?
That will be to get students to training that is outside of the city. So we have.
No, I mean, and I understand that,
Yeah.
that's specifically for this program, but
Right.
what are we using? Centro or Uber, Lyft, like a van pool, like what is?
I think we were doing a combination of vans and Lyft is what we had talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's-
Thank you. Councilor Driscoll or Councilor Paniagua, any questions?
Since you mentioned bands, there's a lot of the non-for-profit,
Yeah.
the grassroots connections that you were.
That's what we
hopefully,
figured we would
that they
pay
already
them
have the
to do
bands.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just had a question, and maybe you've answered this already, and I've missed it. To penetrate those communities that will most benefit from something as great as this, how is it that you're penetrating these communities and letting our residents know that this is available to them?
Well, multiple ways. I mean, what we found is that there's no silver bullet, but, I'm a former community organizer, right? Like, first of all, we do our best to try to hire folks on our team who represent those communities and have their own networks, but then also the partner organizations that we've built trusted relationships with over the last, 10 years or so. We rely on them to get that word out. And then through those networks and just reaching out, but then also through aggressive social media. But we have found that, as of late, we've gotten a huge turnout from a lot of stuff that we're putting out there through those strategies.
Are you contracting with any of the non-for-profit that already have employment programs and
We
stuff
are.
like that?
Yes, yes. So we have contracts with the Community Center Collaborative, which obviously brings in multiple community centers representing every neighborhood. But then we also have a variety of other more, like that one's a kind of a blanket contract we have to support multiple work train sponsor programs. But then between SUNY EOC, Northside Learning Center, I'd have to kind of like go back and think about all the different Volunteer Lawyers Project. We have a number of partners that we have contracted with over the years to do the same kind of work, so,
Okay, excellent, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I was curious, as we look through the numbers here, I was not aware that such a large portion would be going to the software development training. Could you
Yeah.
go into detail about what kind of jobs those would be training folks for and what that would be?
Sure. I mean, these are computer programming, coding primarily, and so there's kind of, this is two programs kind of got lumped into one line item here. One is job training for job seekers, people out of work, or not in the industry, and that's a 6-month training, very intensive, very skill driven. And those are jobs that are kind of going into high level, like higher skill coding roles, which is why it takes so long, because you're literally learning a whole new language and learning how to apply it. And so that basically lands at, we're roughly at about $41 an hour, I think is what we had pulled out. I can verify exactly that if you want me to, but it's certainly a,
That's where people train
yeah,
in that.
41.86 is the average starting wage in that field. The other thing we're doing also in that same field, and variations of it, is we're doing a quasi apprenticeship program, a kind of a fellowship program where we're getting employers to hire individuals up front before they're fully skilled up, but we're going to pay for ongoing training and professional development over the course of 6 months, as well as giving some employer benefits. The employers have skin in the game, and we put skin in the game, but we get those people already immersed in the workplace and learning as they go. So those are kind of two models that we're running in parallel, both in partnership with the Erie 21 program at Lemoyne and Hack Upstate, who have been our partners in this work to date and been doing a great job.
And does this type of training do you guys have a long track record with this? Have you had good success, or is this a new
It's
initiative?
relatively new. I mean, we just graduated a cohort, our second cohort with that program, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, and so I mean, the reality is that it's too early to say we have a long track record. What we know is that these are high in demand skills, and we're basing all the training we're developing on best practices from other cities, and where we've seen other best practices fall short in other cities, we're modifying. So I would say this, right? The tech profession is one of the only industries that has both grown and also seen wage increases. It is woefully, I'd like to, it's a white, and it's a predominantly white, predominantly male industry. And so we could either throw our hands up and say, well, that's just how it is, or we can be really aggressive. And I think the good news is that we have, several, I don't know what, probably 15 employers at this point, specifically in this field, who are not just saying they want workers. They're really saying they want to have a community impact. They want diversity in their workforce. Not only they want to recruit and hire out of these programs, but they also want to take a look within and figure out how to make their culture and environment more welcoming. So, and so I think this is our attempt to really be aggressive about giving folks a foothold in that industry. We also have a number of I think the real innovative work we're doing is beyond the training. Liza's going to be organizing a series of professional development opportunities for all the folks going through this, where they're going to be doing leadership training, entrepreneurship training, social events, networking outside of what they're doing, but as a way to kind of really help create a sense of culture and solidarity and momentum among that group, so that they can continue to recruit other peers and students out into the profession over time. So that's not being funded by this, but that's also happening on top of the training itself.
Gotcha. And then the second largest line item is the stipends.
Yeah.
And you kind of explained the logic behind that.
Yeah.
What would that, what would that break down to traditionally for a student? What type of stipends? I'm sure it probably varies from trade to trade, yeah?
It does vary. I mean, we, you know, in a best case scenario, what we're doing is literally paying $12.50 an hour for every hour in training. In some cases, the logistics of that and just the budget didn't quite amount to that, but that's the ideal. So some will be a little less than that. We won't be able to cover the cost of the full training, but it'll be enough to still help people, you know, adjust their lifestyle accordingly.
I was gonna say, Council Driscoll, you got a lot of questions for somebody who's been the Uber driver. No.
We just talk music and sports.
Yeah, we talked too much. I always stir you up too loud when I'm going through this, so.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna give a disclaimer before anybody has a panic. I have hay fever, respiratory issues, so every time the weather changes, I cough, so nobody run out the room. You're good.
I was freaking
I'm
out.
COVID-free.
I was coughing the other day because of my allergies too. So I
Yeah,
was
it's a
concerned.
pain. My colleagues on the committee, are you good with this item?
Yes, of course.
Well, there's a little difference because we held it, we have to put it on by waiver. So if all of us are good with ultimately putting it on by waiver, we shouldn't have a problem come Monday. So, you good with that?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so we'll be all set on Monday. Now,
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you,
Appreciate
councilors.
everybody. Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Okay.
Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Enjoy the sun.